Our time is 19 minutes, 19 after 6 o'clock in the morning. We have all kinds of good music for everybody on this Dawn Buster for a Monday morning. Hope you'll come along and join us. This is your host, Army Specialist Kramer Has, the Record Man.
Makes you larger, and one pill makes you small, and the ones that mother gives you don't do anything at all. Go ask Alice when she's 10 feet tall. And if you go chasing rabbits and you know you're going to fall, Chalamanca.
Hello, everybody. Today we have John Good back for his third time. And I know it's been a while, so thank you, John, for coming on again. And now we covered quite a bit, and all the veterans that I've been talking to or interviewing, they have all sent me a bio, and it really helps me out. So this is not from my memory. It's not that good. So last time we talked to you, we talked about the rescue of a pilot who had to bail out of his jet and landed in the middle of nowhere south of the FOB. So that was our last interview. And like I said, there are two more earlier than this one. So please go back to the first 1 and 2 and watch them. So John, if you could take us to the next topic here, the party following the completion of Tailhook.
Yeah, well, when Tailhook was over and everybody came back, the Marines, the Jolly Greens, the whole lot, and came back to the FOB, and we had a big party in the club, and it was pretty wild. Everybody was getting pretty wasted, and and we were pretty rowdy. And I remember one guy cut his finger on a beer can, with a little pop thing, and he cut his finger, and he was and one of our guys sitting next to him said, "Oh, I'll take care of that," and grabbed the finger and stuck it in his mouth and sucked on. And the Marines were like, "Holy mackerel!" So they said to us, they said, "Great party, but please don't invite us back here again." So they weren't. It wasn't, I guess, what they were expecting when they came down. And so they said, I know one of the Jolly Greens got shot down, and I think Paget was in it or something. But anyway, said it was the first time they'd seen a Jolly Green get shot down with small arms fire. That was so heavy. So anyway, they had enough. They had seen enough of the FOB in our part of the country. They didn't want to come back anymore.
So what kind of beer did you guys have access to? I know I've seen the cans of Black Label, and what else do you? I mean, I'm sure
there was a lot of Budweiser. The beer was pretty bad, truthfully. I thought, because think about it. It was palletized here in the States, and then was shipped. It went on ship or was flown over. It went through hot and cold and hot and cold, and then it would sit in some distribution place in Vietnam in the sun, and then it would be shipped up country to wherever it's in destination. By the time it got there, it really wasn't very good. So I drank very little of it, but we had some other stuff that there was. I didn't drink much Balmy Ba either, but you never knew what was in that stuff. But there was some. What was it? There was some Heineken was fairly common over there. I was trying to think of one. San Miguel. Found a lot of San Miguel over there.
Yeah.
Vietnam. You got some Korean and some other types of beer, but I wasn't a big beer drinker back then, so I'm not a big beer drinker now. But
what was your drink of choice back then?
When I was drinking, I would drink scotch a lot of the time. And Bill Spurgeon and I got into scotch, and we used to keep a bottle of Chivas Regal in the little refrigerator we had. And we had a couple of shot glasses. And then so every night we would pour a shot of Chivas Regal. And in fact, I remember he went on a CCK flight to Taiwan, and he went to the American Embassy, the embassy liquor store, and he found a bottle of Chivas Regal that was, I don't know, 18 years old or something, which was pretty wow, you know.
Yeah.
And brought it back, and we would, you know, take a shot each night, you know, sip that down. But yeah, that was my main drink, was scotch most of the time.
And now, would you guys? I know, I mean, we've all seen it in movies, and I've talked to many guys as well. So, did you guys trade with other troops, like you know, the Koreans or the you know, Australians, or you know, like that kind of thing?
Not a great deal. I mean, not individually. We didn't have a lot of contact with those guys. The club manager though was very handy. He had some contact in the general's mess in Saigon, and he would come back with all kind. One time he came back and he had a professional bartender's guide and mixers and just a whole bunch of stuff. And so we sat at the one Sunday afternoon, we sat at the bar going through this bartender's guide. Okay, let's try this one. We had one guy there his family had owned bars, so he was mixing stuff behind the bar. We got kind of wasted that day, but no, we didn't have a lot of. I used to go down and visit my father at Cameron Bay. He was in the Air Force.
Oh, really?
He was there. He came. I was already there. He came, and then he left, and I was still there. But I used to go down and take a duffel bag, and I'd put a bunch of AK-47s in it. And so I'd take a Blackbird down to Nha, then catch a hop over the mountain to Cameron Bay, and I would go flog these AK-47s, genuine AK-47s with one magazine loaded. I would sell them to the airmen. So.
I have heard that in my collection here. It's not to do with SOG, but there was a Canadian Marine, and they had some sappers come through the airfield, and he said they didn't need their weapons anymore or their knives. Okay, yeah, that's pretty clear. So he got the knives, but the other guys got the AKs, and they traded them with the Air Force pilots who wanted them to take home. The interesting part about that story is that I have his knives that he took with him, and also the two VC knives. So they're downstairs. You know, I wanted him to write down that story because once you know, he wanted to get rid of his stuff. So. But yeah, that's and they didn't. So if you were to carry those weapons in the bag, would there be no one there to kind of check you? I mean, like, or you just because you were SF that they just okay, you do what you like?
No, I mean, well, of course I was going on Blackbirds,
Right,
so,
right.
You know, and then I just go over to the helicopter pad there in the Trang, and I'd say, hey, I'm going to see my dad over in Cameron Bay. Can I hitch a ride? You know, and I'd always get a helicopter ride. I remember one helicopter ride was a little bit scary because they were checking out a new pilot. And so we flew out into the ocean, over the ocean. And they said, well, we got to check this guy out, and, you know, we'll drop you off afterward. So all of a sudden they took this big cardboard thing and they put it on the window so you couldn't see. Right. And I'm like, what's going on here? And they were checking out his instrument flying, you know, and we're out there in the ocean flying along blind. And I'm sitting there in the back thinking, boy, I really hope this guy knows what he's doing.
Wow. That's
We made it. We made it around fine.
so when you went down there to see your dad, were you allowed to tell him where you were based? Was that top secret, or you could tell him that you were near the border? Like what? I mean, sure, he knew as a airman, you know, he knew being in the military that he couldn't, you could not tell him everything. And so
No.
were you able to tell him something or?
Well, he knew I was in a camp up in the Highlands,
Right. Okay.
and uh, not a great deal of detail, but he actually ran the caribous on the flight line, a lot of which resupplied A camps all over the country. You
Wow.
know, and so, but you know, but I have to say, going down there was always fun because I couldn't buy a drink or anything. I mean, my dad was a chief master sergeant, like a
Wow.
sergeant major,
Right.
and he lived in a building that was all kind of E8s, E9s, right? And I would come down there to visit, and boy, they'd take me to the club, and I couldn't spend a dime. It was,
Wow. And did they
and one
have,
time I went down and we had our molten yards, and they wouldn't eat on Fridays because they were kind of animus, but they didn't miss any bets. You know, they were Catholic, kind of, you know.
right.
So we said, you guys got to eat, you know, on Fridays, and they wouldn't eat because the Pope says we have to fast on Fridays. So I went to the base chapel to this Catholic priest, and I told him the situation. So he gave me a whole, I don't know, about 12 or 15 rosaries.
Right.
And I took them all back to the molten yards, and I said, okay, these have all been blessed. So you guys can eat now on Fridays. So
That's a kind of interesting question with the yards. Did they believe in like gods, like the actual real tribal people? What did they believe in? Was there
they were,
anything?
yeah, I mean, they were kind of animus. I mean, even the ones that were Catholic, right, or professed to be Catholic, all wore these little bags and
Right.
stuff. We had one guy on the team. We hired him. He was really good, really experienced, and we thought, boy, we really got a catch here. And he came in one day and he said, I'm leaving. He said, I'm going back to my village. And we said, no, why? You got to stay. And he said, no. He said, I had a dream, and I went to basically a witch doctor, and they interpreted the dream, and it said, I'm going to get killed if I don't go back to my village. And we tried everything. We offered him more money, everything, and he said, nope. Witch doctor says I'm going to get killed, so I'm going home. And that was it.
Even, I mean, people can make up their own minds about that kind of stuff, but even if that seed is planted in your mind that you might die, you're going to be off your game, right? So you're not going to be totally focused, and so you just might die because you think,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
I don't know. Did I tell you the story about this guy? We always had a little bit of a war council before we went on a mission, and we didn't give the molten yards maps and stuff, at least not before we went on a mission. But we would sit down and we would talk through things. What if this happens? What do you got to do if the Americans are killed? How do you get in contact? And how do you do this? If I'm killed, who, so on. And we talked through this stuff. And we had a guy who was he'd just joined the team, young guy, and it would have been his first mission. And so everybody was leaving, and he said, "Can I talk to you for a minute?" I said, "Sure." And this was on Texas when I was a 1-0, and so he said, "That was the coldest thing I think I've ever seen." He said, "That's just terrible." He said, "You're sitting there telling people they're going to die, talking about it to their face." And I said to him, I said, "Look," I said, 30 seconds after you walk out that door, you may be dead."
Yeah.
And I said, you need to get around that and kind of put it away somewhere. And because if you can't do that, you're not going to be very much use. So he turned out pretty good. He worked out fine.
Did any of you guys ever have any? I'm talking about the U.S. guys. Ever have any like good luck charms? Did you have something that you took with you on the mission, or I mean, I know technically you weren't supposed to take anything personal with you, but I mean,
No, I didn't take anything personal at all. We all had these Chivas Regal, not Chivas Regal, Canadian Club bags.
the Canadian,
the bottles
yeah,
come in,
yeah,
and a little bit. So you'd take all your stuff and you'd put it in there, tie it up, and hand it in at the Recon headquarters, and they'd put it in the safe while you were gone. Any of your jewelry or watches or anything like that, you wouldn't want to leave laying around.
right.
And that all went into this, well, along with your ID cards and that all went into the safe. You didn't take anything like that.
And so when you were going out, were they still taking out the labels in your gear and stuff just so they had no U.S. markings? Or
yeah, the first set of uniform.
yeah,
the first set of uniforms I got had nothing. I think even the washing instructions were taken out, were gone.
And did you ever spray like black, spray paint on your green stuff? Just to...
Oh yeah, we did that every time. You take turns and stand there and turn, with your arms up and everything, and they'd spray you with different colors, black, green, brown, and that was our camouflage. Actually, it was very good.
Yeah.
I've done my own web gear that I have here the same way. So, in fact, I took it in. I was having a sheath. A guy was making a sheath for me for a karambit.
Right.
It goes up that I
Yeah.
carry up here on my web gear. So he said, you got to bring that web gear in so I can fit the sheath,
Right.
and see if it's going to work out. So I hauled it in, and this place was on one side was a gun shop, and the other side was a kind of a tactical gear and police stuff, right? And it was open between them. You just walk back and forth between them. So I carried this stuff in, all loaded up, and set it on the counter. And 2 or 3 guys came over and they were looking at it. And like, wow, I haven't seen anything like that, And so another guy came over and he looked at it and he said, "That's old school." So,
well, you know what? Old school worked for you just fine, right? You're here.
yeah,
You're here talking to
I
me.
can show you.
Sure.
Here, hold on. I don't know how well you can see this,
Oh yeah.
but that's my battle belt.
So you're all set there. And what kind of knife are you sporting there?
This one is a seal pup.
That's a nice size knife,
Yeah,
practical.
handy. And then I've got a Smith and Wesson M&P 40 cal.
Wow.
So I
You're
won't
all-
bother getting out the other stuff.
you're all set. That's what I kind of enjoy. I mean, anybody should go, or everybody should go and listen to the other ones. And you being special forces, I mean, all of you guys are still equipped and ready to take care of anything that should come through your front door. That's for sure.
Yeah, this is a new one I'm setting up here.
Wow.
I'm waiting for a new scope for it tomorrow. But I put this is a little different. It folds,
Okay.
and I'm thinking about using it as a truck gun. So
How often do you go to the range?
lately I haven't been very, very often. I usually used to go every week, but I haven't been lately. I got to get back going again.
Yeah, it's definitely, I'm sure it's easy to lose that really dialed in, skill set, right? Doesn't matter what you do, but
Yeah, I mean, I've got a few acres out back in the woods, and I'm thinking about clearing some and getting some railroad ties and stuff and setting up my own little area back there.
your own little kill house.
Yeah.
Have you running through that?
Well,
John,
we live in the county, so you hear people shooting all the time.
oh, really? So, yeah, that's
Well,
kind of,
not all the time, but
yeah,
yeah.
but it's not like, here, obviously laws in Canada are completely different, but the community that we live in here, every time that there's fireworks going off on the community Facebook, did you hear gunshots? It's like, oh my God, and we up here, there is quite a problem with gangs. And actually, this is not very nice, but whatever. But there's a road that's not too far away from here where they found three different bodies, and so they were a dumping ground, and so the city had to install a camera, a camera to keep an eye at the end of this road. Yeah, so
Oh,
not to go into this whole gun control thing, but the bad guys are always going to have access, and
oh yeah.
that's what happens here. I'm being so close. I'm so close to the U.S. border. A lot of the stuff comes over the border. Yeah. So
Yeah. Well,
anyway, so
I'm
hmm,
well prepared.
I have no doubt. So how about we talk about the bright light after Fat Albert was lost? Of course,
Oh yeah.
bit of side history. Fat Albert, Fat Albert had a bar. I think you were going into some detail, and I have a warning light in my head that someone told me don't mention too much about that, but he definitely had some the bar. So if we can talk about the bright light.
Yeah. Well, we weren't on bright light, but for whatever reason, they called me up and said, we need you to go do a bright light. Fat Albert is missing. So his team, they'd gotten into serious contact, and then I think one of the yards was wounded or fell behind. Anyway, Fat Albert stayed to look for him. In any case, they got separated, and so part of the team came out, but nobody could. Fat Albert didn't know where he was, and so we went in, two choppers. We were fully loaded out with extra ammo and everything, but we came in, and the Cobras were right beside us. They had been prepping the LZ, and the Cobras were right beside us, firing rockets.
Wow.
As we came down, and there was so much ground fire, and two B-40s went right under the skids of the chopper I was on.
Wow.
And so we, I said, I didn't have anything to say about it. The pilot, said, and he peeled out, and my Ron Maddox, my 1-1, he was in the second chopper, and they just bailed out, and they couldn't get in. It was just the ground fire was too heavy, and they couldn't get it suppressed. So it was, I don't know, it was several days before we were able to get a team in on the ground and look over the area. But of course, by that time, Fat Albert was gone. Whether he was alive or dead, nobody ever knew. But I mean, it was not unusual if somebody got left, was killed or whatnot, got left, and you couldn't get the body out. We'd always go back in for the body, but it wasn't unusual not to be able to find it, because the NBA would carry it off, police up the area. I mean, other than blood trail, a lot of times the only reason you knew anything had happened there was because of blood trail,
Right.
because all the brass, they would police it up,
Really?
bodies, everything. Yeah.
Why do you think that they would clean up all the shells and kind of the remnants of
They'd
battle?
reuse them. Brass was a valued thing.
Really?
I mean, I can remember when we'd go to the yard camp and do our IA drills and everything.
Right.
I mean, we'd fire off hundreds, thousands of rounds of ammo, right? And we didn't, we just left the brass there, and these kids from the village would come running up and start policing up brass because they'd take it off and sell it.
Wow.
So,
Just to go back a little bit. So currently myself and Jim, who I've interviewed before, he and I are actually doing a book about the MIA SOG men. And this is a good time to tell people, because what you just said, that there are different terminologies for MIA. There are some MIAs which are now called the unaccounted men. That's the correct terminology. But there are some men that they know were dead, but they, like you said, they
we call BNR.
BNR, yeah. And so that is the important thing. But there were people like Fat Albert that simply went missing and nobody knows what happened, and he's still, unaccounted for.
Well, it's like when Mixter was killed.
Yeah.
They couldn't get his body out. He took a B-40 in the chest.
Oh God.
And so they knew he was dead.
Yeah.
Right. But they weren't able to get his body out. So he was carried for a while as MIA/BNR.
Right.
And then eventually they ruled, because there were actual eyewitnesses that had seen him get hit. So they eventually ruled that he was KIA.
Right.
But Albert, in his case, nobody actually saw it. He just was gone.
So a question that I asked Nick, Brockhausen was, do you think that there were men that were left behind after the war? What is your?
I don't know. I've gone back and forth on that so many times. I don't know.
Would you think it would be possible that some men were left behind?
Yeah. It would be possible. It would be possible that some deliberately stayed behind.
Yes.
What the value of keeping a prisoner for 50 years or whatever would be, I'm not sure. Even the theoretical propaganda value would have
expired. Yeah.
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 So no, I don't know. I don't think the North Vietnamese would have. The Laotians, I'm not so sure about. I don't know. But I don't know. I've kind of swung like a pendulum back and forth between the two. And supposedly at one point there was some credible evidence that there were some people being held in Laos.
Right.
And there was supposedly a mission being prepped to go, but there was this guy who was running around the place, some former, I forget his name, some former colonel, and he was making all kinds of noise and everything. And they finally determined that he had, created so much publicity around the whole thing, it wouldn't be feasible to try and go in.
Yeah.
So
the one good thing is that now there are so many records out there which can be accessed by the public. And just to add a final point to this, like you said, that maybe some stayed behind. And in one case, there are, for anybody who wants to know, I can tell them, but I do forget the man's name, but I do have it printed out that he was caught. He was a POW and he stayed there. And he was seen afterwards, and there's no question that he did stay behind. That's written in all these documents. So it's good to research these things.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay, so now this for me gets to be quite interesting. Because I'm jumping ahead a bit, but many images of my youth were seen of the Huey helicopters being pushed off the side of a landing, sorry, of an aircraft carrier. But we'll get to that because you were there. You were there for part of that. But before
I
we
was there
jump,
for all of it.
yeah, okay. So if we can kind of start at the end of your military career, the end of my time in the Army and subsequent work with the DIA. So for the public, can you educate them a bit to what the DIA is, please?
It's the Defense Intelligence Agency, and it's the military intelligence side of things, kind of like the CIA is the civilian side, DIA is the military side. And there are various intelligence groups underneath the DIA that do variety of things. But to back up a little bit, I was actually going to re-enlist. And I had come to Don Trang and done all the papers and everything. And so when I came down, a sergeant major called me and he said, "We've got a problem." He said, "They've lost your papers." Yeah, I said, "What does that mean?" He says, "Well, we'll have to, they have to get it sorted out." I said, "So what's that mean for me?" He said, "Well, you'll have to go to Oakland to the replacement depot and hang out until they get it sorted out," because everything was shutting down, right? At that point. And I said, "Well,
Yeah.
I was hanging out in the Trang with me and another guy, and Sergeant Major kept every day he'd see us walking around the compound. "Hey, what are you doing here? You're supposed to be in Saigon." So finally he took us, long story short, he took us to the airstrip, watched us get on the Blackbird and waited until it took off. Because one time he'd taken us out there and they came, the crew chief came up and said, "Hey, we've got 2 packs. We've got to get on. Anybody, And so me and my friend jumped off and went back downtown in the train. So the sergeant major, the last time, he escorted us on. So we got to Saigon. We checked in. I checked in at House 11. I think the other fellow went on to Long Bin. And I went to House 11, checked in, and they said, "Listen," they said, "you're supposed to go out to process out tomorrow." I said, yeah. I said, "I'm going to go downtown and see some friends. I'll be back." Well, I went downtown to see my friends, and I stayed downtown for about a week or 10 days.
Wow.
Technically, I was AWOL, but I was grousing with, they're going to send me back for a replacement. This friend of mine who worked for the USIS, the information agency, USIS, something like that. Anyway, it was basically an information agency that was over there. And he said, "Well, I know some people that are looking they're hiring." He said, "Would you be interested?" And I said, "I don't know. What's the deal?" I was so pissed off about this whole, I had this whole plan laid out on what I was going to do. And that. So, plus there was a sizable re-enlistment bonus at that time because of my MOS and everything. So anyway, long story short, I actually initially signed up with Vanell, came back over as one of their security people, and then that wasn't working out too well. And so I heard that something was going on at the DAO, and I went out and I got hired by the DIA as an intel guy. And they actually sent me back up to 2 Corps because I'd spent so much time up there. So I was working out of the consulate in the Trang, and then eventually I was in Pleiku. I was kind of the liaison with the Vietnamese 2 Corps headquarters. And so I was up there, and then things started falling apart. And interestingly enough, a guy that I worked for came up to the Trang, and he and I wrote an intelligence assessment about the Vietnamese. And because one of the things we did was we kind of interacted with the Vietnamese army, but we were assessing their ability and capability.
Right.
And so we wrote this assessment, and it was kind of dark. I mean, it's, the Vietnamese army was full of a lot of, not to say there weren't good people in the Vietnamese army and service. There were, but there was also a lot of corruption.
Right.
And, you had these shadow soldiers. So you'd go someplace and it was supposed to be a company strength, and there'd be 50 guys there,
Wow.
because all the rest had gone home, and the company commander was drawing their salary. So anyway, that was what I was doing. The assessment was not viewed favorably by the embassy, or the consul general, I should say. And he said, "Well, I'm not gonna forward this." And we said, "Well, you don't have to, because we don't depend on you for our communication." But anyway, it wasn't viewed favorably in Saigon either, because that wasn't what people wanted to hear,
Right.
that things were going down the tubes. And we even predicted, if the North Vietnamese did an offensive, how it would go, where they would come in at. And it was funny, when things started falling apart, it pretty well followed the scenario that we had said. In fact, we got a call from Saigon, and I said, "Say, you remember that assessment you and Tony Lawson wrote about a year ago, 9 months ago?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Do you still have a copy of that? We can't seem to find ours. We'd like to see that again." I said, "Yeah, okay, we'll send it down to you." But so I don't know, Nha Trang fell, or it was like it just shut down, right? And we were kind of trapped in the consul general building, and I was running the evacuation there, and I had the Marines, and they were all real young guys, and so I had kind of ended up taking over. And I had a couple of my Vietnamese that worked for me, and maybe a yard or two. Anyway, we were all armed, and we were running the evacuation. And Air America was landing helicopters in the parking lot, taking people out. I remember going up to the consul general's office. His last post had been Nassau, right?
Wow.
So maybe that's why they put him in Nha Trang. They thought he would be familiar with beach and whatnot. So anyway, he's sitting at his desk with his first officer standing there, and he's got this shoulder holster rig with a 45 in it, and he's sitting there. And I said, "Look," I said, "everything's cool." I said, "We've got this compound secured. We've got security out." I said, "The people are, everybody's calm right now, right? I said, just stay cool. I'll keep you posted on the radio, what's going on, but just, So I went back down, and we're shuttling people out to the helicopters, and it's going. And all of a sudden, there was a side door and gate out to the big wall that ran down the side of the consul general building, and a door that went out to the parking lot. All of a sudden, see the consul general, his first officer, and they're running out to an Air America helicopter, jumped on. It was only them on it, and told him to take off.
Ugh.
I'm like, and of course, all these people standing there saw it too.
Wow.
And so immediately, I'm saying, "Hey, it's okay, calm down." And it was like it went from night to day, or day to night, just
Right.
like
Panic, right?
yeah. And so we fell back into the consul general and shut the door, closed and barred the doors. And I ran down to the communications room, and I had a riot gun. And so I ran in there, and I jumped on because the day we had these teletype machines, right? Jumped on, and I said something to the effect of, "We're shutting down now, have to go." Jumped back and pumped just pump all the communication gear full of 12 gauge. And about that time, the young Marine sergeant came running down the hall. He's saying, quick, come on, the right guy. And we took off running.
Wow.
And we got out the side door and we had people blocked off. And we're getting the few remaining people out to the helicopter, Air America helicopter. And we go out and we close the door. They broke down the door. And I turned around. I'd reloaded, turned around. I didn't want to shoot any of the people because they were just scared, you know.
Right.
And they were Vietnamese civilians. And so I fired over their head and hit it was a cinder block wall. I mean, chunks of that thing just went, you know, and everybody went down. So I turned around and the helicopter was gone. I'm like, what's going on? And it was, I don't know, 50 feet, 75 feet up. And I look and there's this big fat, I mean, this guy was fat and we tried to get him out. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be, but he was obese. And we had tried to get him on some early, I thought he'd gotten out. And he's standing there. And I thought, oh my God. I grabbed him. One of the Marines told me later, they saw me grab him by the collar. And he said he was on his hip toes and I was dragging him across the parking lot and behind some cars that were parked. And we hunkered down and the Vietnamese kind of dispersed because the chopper was gone now and they all. So I had my riot gun and I had a revolver, a 38 also. And I pulled it out and I said to him, I said, do you know how to use this? And I gave it to him. And because I figured we were going to have to E&E to the airstrip,
Right.
all right, across town. And in the meantime, the helicopter, the Marines whacking the pilot on the head saying, you left John, get back down there. And he actually threatened the pilot with he pulled out his M16, threatened the pilot.
Wow.
So sure enough, here it comes, you know, back down. Of course, that then attracted the people again. So we went running out. I got that big guy and tossed him and the Marines grabbed me. I ran around the other side and he's already starting to pull up again. And I literally made a dive for the door and two of the Marines grabbed me and pulled me in as the helicopter took off. And so I got to Saigon with my riot gun. I had a leather map case that I'd started gunting and habit carrying around with me all the time. Had my checkbooks and, you know, passports, and all that kind of stuff, right? Any kind of paperwork that was. So I had that. I had a pistol I gotten back from the guy, set of nunchucks, a bunch of stuff in there. And so I was in Saigon. I was at DAO headquarters, and the Colonel Grow, who was the head of our intel section, was trying to get rid of me. He didn't like me. You could hear his teeth grind every time I passed him in the hallway because I had long hair down here and wore blue jeans and, you know, stuff. I could walk into a shop and they would think I was French, right? And they would speak to me in French because I didn't look like an American and double knit and whatnot. I didn't dress that way. So anyway, he was trying to get rid of me in the worst way. And suddenly somebody caught me in the hallway and they said, hey, listen, they said, there's some people down, everything at the DAO out in Ponsanoo, all the rooms are numbered. And they just said, it's a huge place. And they said, there's some people looking for you in room 351. And I said, okay. So I went down there and found the room and I knocked on the door and it opens up and this eyeball looks out. And All of a sudden the door's thrown open and these guys grab me and pull me in, and it's a bunch of SF guys who aren't supposed to be there. And so they were there trying to help organize the evacuation. And so anyway, they got me they'd heard I was around, and so they got me as an evacuation control officer. So what they had done in Saigon was there were 12 or 13 sites around Saigon, including the embassy. All of them were buildings that were several stories and had a helicopter pad, or were situated so a helicopter could land on top. And they put an evacuation control officer in each one. And mine was right around the corner from the Majestic. And it was a Chinese bank. And then the top 4 floors were embassy apartments. And so I had a little security team, and so the idea was when the balloon went up, people would make their way to these evacuation points and then be exfilled by chopper. Some bright spark came up with the idea of, well, we'll put everybody in a bus and we'll take them out to Thompson Newton. We actually lost a bus full of people. Nobody knew where it was. Well, that didn't turn out to be a good. They finally found it, and it was okay. But that wasn't the best way, driving through the streets and like that in that situation. I remember being on the roof, and we were watching a huge firefight, probably a battalion size, down south of us, and between the NVA and the Vietnamese, and it was a battle, and we were just standing up there watching it take place, and so things were still functioning. Well, that was on the last day that occurred, but things were pretty much still functioning, going around, going to the bar at night. I remember seeing this guy, and he had a brand new presidential date, a gold Rolex, right?
Nice.
I said, wow. I said, you didn't have that before. And he said, yeah. He said, this Chinese family asked me to marry their daughter, fly her to I don't know, LA or San Francisco. I don't remember which, probably San Francisco. And people met him at the gate, basically, and whisked her away.
Wow.
And they gave him 10 grand. So he was coming back to see if he could do it again. But I don't know, it was the day at Saigon fell, it was I don't know, 3 o'clock in the morning, something like that. And I had a bedroom, and it had a big picture window kind of thing on it, looking toward Thompson Newton. And I had a couple of sets of radios by the bed and on different nets. And, there was just this quiet, the squelch sound. And all of a sudden, the sky lit up out at Thompson Newton, got hit by some rockets. And, the radios went crazy. And the next day, the evacuation started in earnest for all the remaining people. And I was there until, I don't know, late in the afternoon. I think the only place that left after me was at the embassy. And so I remember going out on the chopper and looking down, and I thought, I didn't really understand what I was looking at. And then I realized it was people in all kinds of little boats and stuff, just heading out to sea. I don't know where they thought they were going, but they were going out to sea. So we landed, my helicopter landed on a missile frigate, and had a little chopper pad on the fantail. And so we got off. We had some Vietnamese, and I had an American guy with me who was part of my security team, and the rest were Vietnamese and whatnot. And so the captain came down. He said, "Look," he said, "I've got a couple empty rooms, empty billets, you know. He said, if you want, you can just stay on this ship with us. I said, sure, that sounds like a plan, which turned out to be a good decision, I'll tell you, because those carriers turned into a nightmare. And geez, we were on that ship, and the Vietnamese Navy came steaming out, and they had a bunch of Coast Guard, former U.S. Coast Guard cutters, right, and other smaller ships. And they had, the North Vietnamese had actually strung a chain across the river to try and prevent them getting out, and they just steamed through it. And there was this rear admiral that was on it, Vietnamese guy I knew, real good guy, and he got out. So anyway, so their group joins up with our group, right? And then these choppers start coming. Now, the story on the choppers, this was a Vietnamese helicopter squadron based in Can Tho, south of Saigon. And what happened was when the North Vietnamese came up, they just bypassed Can Tho. They just figured we can come back and mop that up later. They're no threat to us, right? So the squadron commander told his people, said, go home, get all your families and everything. We're loading up everybody on the choppers, and we're heading out to the convoy that's out off the coast. So this entire squadron comes heading out. And so they say, they call ahead and they say, we want to land. And they said, well, we've got no place for you. And they said, well, you better make space because we're going to land one way or the other. We have no fuel to go back. So that's what you saw on the newsreels. They were either landing on the carriers and then shoving them off the fantail, or in some cases they would offload people and then take back off, and they had some small boats circling around, and the pilot would dive out, and the boats would race, while hopefully the chopper would go the other way, and the boats run over and pick him up. And I remember the squadron commander landed on the missile frigate that I was on, right? And his helicopter was like it just came out of the showroom. I mean, all leather seats, and I mean, this thing was pristine. You can imagine some little private out there every day polishing and from the nose to the tail. And the two helicopters, the frigate had its own helicopter, and had a couple pilots, and these pilots were walking around this thing, looking at it and saying, "This is great." Listen, what they were scheming was that they wanted to take their helicopter, fly it off, and then roll this one, the Huey, into their hangar, and then leave their helicopter on the fantail and take it back with them. But the captain said, "No, I don't think that's going to fly. We're not going to do that." So right after that is when the Vietnamese Navy came out and joined us. And so we're all happily steaming through South China Sea toward the Philippines. And so the Philippines, I was up with the captain. We had pretty free run of the ship. We could go up on the bridge, and they got us up one night to watch a refueling take place at night in the dark, and they had the refueling ship here, and they were going, and I mean they didn't slow down. They were going full bore and shooting lines across, bringing the fuel, in these big, great big hoses. It was quite something to watch, but so we had, like I said, had pretty free run of the ship. And so I was up on the bridge, and he said, "We've got a problem." He said, "The Filipinos say they're not going to let the Vietnamese Navy in." And the Vietnamese Navy say they're coming in. So he said, "I'm not sure what's going to happen." So there was a lot of, backroom, back channel stuff going on between Washington and the Philippines and, so on, back and forth. So finally, the Filipinos said, okay, they can come in on a couple of conditions. One, they have to be disarmed. All right. Secondly, they have to be under the command of an American. So what they did was they transferred, we would come up alongside a Vietnamese ship, and they would transfer one of the naval officers over that ship. They'd strike the Vietnamese colors and run up a U.S. flag. So technically, it was now a U.S. ship under U.S. command. All right. The Vietnamese were not very happy about this at all. All right. They were really not happy. But and then we started offloading weapons. And he came up to me, the captain came, he said, listen, he said, we don't have very much experience with these kinds of weapons. He said, could you come and have a look at them and let me know what's worth keeping or not keeping or what? And I mean, they must have brought half the armor. I don't know what, but these things were chock-a-block with weapons. I mean, every kind, 50 cal, M60s, M16s, I mean, everything you can imagine, and ammunition to go with it. They had enough stuff in there to start a pretty major war. And all these ships were loaded to the gills. So we had Americans that were going through the stuff, and they're bringing it. I mean, some of this stuff was never been opened. It was brand new in the crate, right? And so I'm saying, this is good stuff, and their sailors are taking it in until they absolutely filled up the ship's armory. He came down, he said, I can't put anything else in. And so after that, we just started. So the bottom of the South China Sea is littered with weapons all over the place, as well as the squadron commander's beautiful Huey, because we pushed it off the end of the fantail. And that was the trip down to Subic Bay in the Philippines.
So so thank you for telling us that story, and what I will do is I will add some of the photographs, and I have seen footage of one of the Vietnamese pilots, as you said, jumping out of his chopper, and I'd be like, so freaked out that the blades would chop me up.
Yeah.
So I'm going to try and find that. So after that, you got to a safety. What did you do? Not for the rest of your life, but I know you had told me the trouble. You had told me that you felt more comfortable overseas, and that you took on various jobs. Was there one main job that you did? I mean, if someone, or what was your favorite job after the war?
Oh, well, what happened was I joined up with some guys in Singapore. I had an apartment in Bangkok for a while. And so I used to go back and forth between Singapore and Bangkok all the time. And I always had a ticket in my briefcase. So I had clothes in Bangkok. So all I had to do was just take my briefcase and go to the airport, like that. And, but I hooked up with some guys in Singapore, and we bought what actually had been at one point in its life a minesweeper.
Mm-hmm.
And then it became a tow. It was towing ammunition barges between Phnom Penh and Saigon on the Mekong. So we acquired this ship, and we got it fixed up. And it was kind of unique because it had a towing capability for barges, but it also had a 5-ton internal cargo capacity. So that was a little unusual. So we would hire it out to, at the time there was a lot of offshore oil stuff down in that area around Indonesia and everything. And we'd hire out to the oil companies. And we got a couple of boats that we were working with. We had ours and a couple more that we were kind of managing, if you will. And pretty good. And then Petramina, who was the Indonesian oil cartel, came up short one year about, I forget how much, $10 million or something. Yeah, they were corrupt as hell. And so they turned around to the oil company and said, look, we think at the time the split was a 65-35 deal between 65 in favor of the Indonesian, 35 the oil company. And the oil companies were making tons of money. So Indonesian said, we think we need to change the split, because they were trying to cover themselves, right? So they said, we're going to change it. It's going to be 85-15.
Oh,
The oil company said, nah, we'll talk about it, you know, but that's a little bit steep, and it's, you know, a little sudden. So the Indonesians thought they were holding all the cards, right? Well, about that time, the Middle East was coming open, and the North Sea was breaking open. So the oil company said, look, either you sit down and negotiate reasonably, or we're going to cap the wells and we'll tow our rigs in. Okay. And the Indonesians thought they were bluffing. So I was working with a guy, an Australian guy. He was a former SAS guy, Australian SAS. And we were working on a boat that was based off old China sailor plans, and had it built up on the coast of Malaysia and then towed down. And our idea was to get this thing done, and it had an internal cargo capability. And since we had all been around Asia for a long time, we had some backers, so we were going to buy stuff in Asia, sail across to the U.S. West Coast, sell off everything at about a 400 or 500% markup, which would have still made it cheap in the States, and because we could get it dirt cheap in Asia, right? And I mean, I remember saying, you know what a princess ring is?
no.
They used to call them princess rings, and they were tiered, and they had opals and little ruby garnets and whatnot. Very pretty, gold, you know. And so I could buy those in bulk in Bangkok for probably $10 a shot. And they sold in San Francisco for about, I saw them around Ghirardelli Square one time in a place, they were going $75, $85.
Wow.
So we figured, you know what? We'll buy them in bulk. We'll sell them. We'll pay 10 for them, 8 or 10, depending on how well we negotiated. Sell them for 40, right? And then so our whole plan was buy a cargo, take it, offload it, come back, pay back the backers, do it all over again, right? We figured we could do easy 3 trips a year and live large. Yeah. So that was what I was really aiming to do. But then when we all kind of depended on the oil business for our real life, you know, for day to day paying the bills kind of stuff. So when that went down the tubes, I mean, I like in 1 week down not far from where we had this boat we were working on in a marina, I saw, I don't know, 3 or 4 rigs come pulling back in. The oil companies are just, and I mean, the oil business just shut down. I mean, I remember one company had 27 crew boats in harbor in Singapore that, you know, used to take crew and everything out to offshore rigs. They had 27 sitting in Singapore harbor doing nothing, paying harbor fees. So, I mean, things just went from the high life to bam, you know, the bottom. So it was around that time I said, well, maybe I've been in Asia long enough. Maybe it's time to do something different. So at that point, I went to Europe, went back to Europe. I said back to Europe. I went to Europe and ended up in England. And that's where I met my wife in London. and stayed there for a couple of years, and then came back here, and she was pregnant, and so we decided to come back before she got too far along, right? Because they don't like you having babies on international flights. And so we came back here in 1980 and been here ever since.
Wow. And so were you able to, I mean, I know a lot of SF guys, you know, that they miss that excitement, not to say the combat part, but I mean, like jumping out of airplanes and that kind of stuff. Did you ever do anything like that was, you know, was your adrenaline, you were able to keep it under check, or did you miss that rush?
Well, that was the thing. I mean, I remember talking about it with a guy, a good friend of mine, said basically we were all living on adrenaline highs, you know, and then suddenly to take that away, you know, it was kind of a, but, you know, so yeah, I mean, I tried to do things that, you know, but you know, you have to learn to kind of tamp it down a little bit.
Yeah.
So, you know, I keep my hand in and other things. But
you keep busy, eh?
Oh yeah, yeah. You know, people used to, when I retired back in 2014, end of 2014, people said, "Oh, you're gonna," because I was a program project manager for big projects, and said, "Oh, you're going to be bored." And I tell you, I don't have enough time to do the things I need to do these days. So I guess
I think that's good. You know, you're better off, whether it be me or you or anybody else, keep yourself, you know, busy. And that's the key, you know. But like I was
I
saying,
think I did enjoy, and I think I enjoyed being I did a number of different things in corporate America, but I really enjoyed being a project and program manager because it was always something different, and it was always, you know, I mean, you were at that time, you were at the client site, you were traveling around between, you know, you were doing stuff, you're constantly on the go, right?
Yeah.
And then it changed, and they started doing more, you know, remote stuff,
Right.
and you know, and I said, you can't run a project over the phone. You've got to be able to see what's going on, you know. And half the problems that would come up was because, I mean, they were hiring guys off the street that I don't know where had things would, you know, problems would crop up because, you know, nobody was there to head them off, you know. And so I don't know. So everything kind of changed, and I was starting to get frustrated with it. And then I thought, I don't have to do this. I don't have to put up with this. I don't like it. I'm not enjoying it anymore. So, I called them up and I said, end of this year, I'm done. So, and that's what I did.
Wow. Well, I think everybody's really been enjoying your interviews, whether it be with me or with Bud, and I think it's a great thing that you guys have been doing. And hopefully it will inspire more, you know, veterans to talk. Obviously, there are many things that are going to remain private, but even sharing some of your experiences, I think is great. Yeah, we're at that hour time, and I try and keep to an hour. So thank you very much for your time today.
The little red rooster, too lazy to crow for day. I am the little red rooster, too lazy to crow for day. in the farmyard, upset in every way. The dogs begin to bark, hounds begin to howl. Dogs begin to bark, hounds begin to howl. Watch out, strange camp people, little red roosters on the prowl.